Ladies, gentlemen, small recruit after Tory to the meta stream. We are going to be taking a look at the stats, and not only are we going to be going through the data line by erotic line, because what is more erotic than hard data, and we will be adding our own analysis and thoughts behind why certain things have happened, and just get peering into the eye of the meta, staring right into the brown eye. That's what we're going to be doing, boys. This data comes from a website called 40k Meta Monday. There's a link to this specific data set down in the description of this live stream. The person that puts this data together is a guy called JCMS85, and he does this every single week. He goes through all of the BCP data, and here's the one that adds up all of the numbers so that we can pierce the veil. And it's very, very important because this data it allows us to actually either confirm or deny the information that GW is telling us, which is very important. And it also allows us to have a fucking clue if our feelings, like, oh, Necrons feel really overpowered, are legitimate or not. I highly encourage you to consider going over to the website, giving it clicks, giving it some traffic, and of course also checking out the fact that he does have a Patreon. So if you like this kind of data and you want and you like this kind of information and you want to support it and make sure that it sticks around, then please consider that. So there were 502 players this weekend. So Saturday, Sunday, there were 502 players. Overall, this meant that there were 2,369 games played. There were 83 people out of these 502, sorry. There were 83 people that went what we call sort of X-1 or undefeated. So X-1 means either 5-1 or 4-1. Basically, they only lost one game. Typically, not always, but typically that means that they did very well, then they got to the final, and then they lost it. So they didn't quite win it. So the average win rate was 47%. The average win rate you want to be looking at this week is 47%. So if someone is particularly higher than that, you tend to say about 50%, but if someone's particularly higher than 47%, or particularly lower than it can indicate that they're in not a good spot whatsoever. The last thing to mention is there were 10 events. This data is made up of 10 events. One very last thing to mention, this data only uses GTs and above. So any event that was basically 5 rounds or higher that took place over 2 days. So no one-day RTTs are included in this information. My, these guys do not seem to be doing well. Chaos Space Marines started off 10th edition quite powerful. They had some really good leverage into their dark packs, and there were some units such as Forge Fiends that were downright oppressive. They also had some very potent combos with Abaddon leading a unit of Terminators, and those combinations got quite badly nerfed, and since then Chaos Space Marines have been on a slow yet steady decline. Someone somewhere took Chaos Space Marines and went 4-1 with them in a decently sized event, what anyone would describe as a very, very solid GT in terms of numbers and rounds and everything, and we've had a Chaos Space player go 4-1. And I've been saying this for a while now. I do feel like Chaos Space Marines at the moment are somewhat struggling to adapt. But there's obviously something in there. There has to be something there for someone to go 4-1. Rather than me just blithely saying, oh, just mechanize up. Because I face against a mechanized Chaos Space Marine army. I think there's more to it than that. I think maybe they never seem to have enough stuff. That is my takeaway of Chaos Space Marines this week, after playing them recently. So, the next faction we have is Tyranids. Now, Tyranids is one we have our eyes on at the moment, because there's some interesting things happening within the faction. Looking into these different factions, these different fleets, we can see that still this week, the most popular faction for the Tyranids is the Invasion Fleet. Now, I feel like Invasion Fleet is a little bit of a trap. I've said this before on the channel. I'm not saying it's bad, but it's like they know if they go Invasion Fleet, when they go to a tournament, they're not going to get whitewashed. They're not going to lose every single game. They know that when they go to a tournament, that they'll go 2-3 or 3-2. And they're like, you know what? As long as I don't lose every game, I'm happy. I'm okay with that. If I come away with 2-3, I'm happy. So it's safe. That's what I feel like. Why a lot of people take Invasion Fleet. Also, it's very much the beginner thing as well because of the index. A lot of people are familiar with it. You can take almost any take all comers turned lists, slap it like that meme with the duct tape on like the leaky water tank. Slap Invasion Fleet on it. And suddenly you'll be okay. Brave, beautiful motherfucker. One dude took this to an event and he went fucking 0-5. He didn't win a single fucking game. He shot for the... He reached for the stars and ended up dying in the cold vacuum of space in his own personal Kerbal space program. You, sir, whoever you are, I salute you. You are a pioneer. I mean, you may have pioneered yourself right into a fucking sinkhole, but you are a pioneer, sir. Vanguard Onslaught, it's only one dude, so it's hard to take much data away from it. But every week we see Vanguard Onslaught come in at about 40%. The problem with Vanguard is it's very sneaky. It's very sneaky. But and it's very tricksy, and a lot of people get bamboozled by it and they end up getting themselves in knots. The problem is once you've played it once and you realize that, oh, it's very sneaky, but it literally does fuck all damage and it's trying to like battle shock me to death. How I dealt with it is I just drove tanks up to it and blew it off the table because it couldn't do anything about it. Unending Swarm, yeah baby, this is what we like to see. Two beautiful bastards, two of my mood kindred here, going and taking the Unending Swarm, 4 victories, 10 games played, coming in with a crisp 40% win rate. We love to see it. I took Unending Swarm to a tournament last week. It's what I was doing last week, and it was a ton of fun, man. It does fuck all damage. Like you don't do any damage thing, but it's so much fun. You just swarm and swarm and swarm and swarm, baby. Yeah, it's a ton of fun. So how an Unending Swarm basically works is there's 2 waves. The first wave can consist of Hormagaunts or Gargoyles or a mixture there and of both. And it goes past the middle objectives. It just goes, just runs at you, and it's pressure. And then behind comes in the other swarm units like your Termagants, who basically just sort of waddle onto the objectives and pray to fuck that the enemy takes forever to chew through the Hormagaunts, and if they do chew through them, that they've got enough bodies to be able to, hold the objectives for a bit. After my experience with Unending Swarm, if your opponent has cleared the first wave by turn 2, you're fucked, you've lost the game. If your opponent hasn't cleared the first wave by turn 2, and definitely by turn 3, you've won the game. So there you go. Unending Swarm is basically Tyranid pressure lists, and it's a lot of fun to run, for sure. And then we've got Synaptic Nexus, which has really seen a surge in popularity in the last few weeks, in the last month. Only 3 players, but that's pretty good. It's consistently got a few players. They won 7 out of 15 games. One person even went 4-1. So despite the fact that these guys had less than a fifth, less than 20% of the players of Invasion Fleet, they had the same amount of players that managed to go 4-1. Pretty big deal. Netting them overall a 47% win rate. Synaptic Nexus, and I think I'm getting this right, guys. Please correct me down in the comments if I'm wrong. The reason it's powerful is because it has Armor of Contempt. And if it has Armor of Contempt, then it's good. That's basically it. Adds a bit more durability. Finally, we get to, this will be a quick one to be honest, we get to the Adeptus Mechanicus. This is just grim. Nothing has changed from last week, the week before that, and fuck it, the week before that, and every fucking week. Nothing has changed for AdMech since the beginning. But I'll briefly cover it in case we've got any people who are watching the stream for the first time. The problem with AdMech is threefold. Firstly, their rules this edition are quite boring, and their data sheets are a little bit like looking at Scutari, like Ballistic Skill 4+, like only 10-man squads. They should be BS 3+ and 20-man squads. We all know this, but they're not. Yeah, the problem is that they've got kind of crappy rules and kind of crappy data sheets by and large. And then the second thing is that they're kind of boring. And the reason they're very boring to play in 10th edition is they have a very, very limited number of competitive play styles. They basically have one build, which just consists of taking a shitload of Scutari and a shitload of the Chicken Walkers. The problem with that is it leads us into point number 3. AdMech is too damn expensive. To get the competitive AdMech list will cost you $1,500 to $1,800 US for one build. One build which could be invalidated in the next balance patch. AdMech are the first example of a faction which has literally been priced out of the competitive game. Godlike Poet, 2 players just so fucking self, and if AdMech rarely, in fact, only on the busiest of weekends, the AdMech get double digits for their player numbers, and even then we're talking like 10 or 11, and that's not even guaranteed. We've seen 700 plus players in a weekend, and there's only be 3 AdMech players. AdMech are in a terrible, terrible spot right now, and the number one thing is the price. So, the Astra Militarum, the Imperial Guard, the Emperor's true finest, coming in with what some may describe as a worrying 40% win rate. Ha! Ha! That is exactly where I expect it to be. Exactly. Regulars of the channel will know that the guard win rate for a while is going to be low. When looking at the guard win rate, do not look at this number. I'm going to come, because you know what's going to make me come? This number and this number. Oh, baby. 38 motherfucking players. That gives us more players than the Custodies, who are typically a very, very popular faction. That gives us more players than fucking Space Marines, which is a very, very respectable achievement. We are the second most popular faction every single week since people found out that Guard are actually good. We've been in the out of 20. Bear in mind, there's about 26 factions in 40k, and the fact that this time we're the second most popular faction is chef's kiss. Winning 74 games on its own is pretty good. We, as a faction, we got 74 fucking wins. We got more wins than Tyranids, just straight up. Okay, obviously we have more players, but just being able, we're a faction that can get raw win numbers. Out of 184 games, so the 40% looks kind of shitty, right? But you don't want to look at that. You want to look at this. 4 of our players went 4-1. So 4 players had an 80% win rate. Why is there such a disparity between this number and this number? Why? Because this is 80% essentially. So why are we getting some people that are going 80%, but on average everyone's going like 40%? What's going wrong? Guard are a high practice, high experience faction. With very few exceptions. Pretty much the first 10 games that you play with Guard, you're going to lose. I tell all new players, you got your first 2,000 point army together. Don't panic if you keep losing games. You lose your first half a dozen to 10 games. It's a rite of passage. Guard are one of those armies where the first time you face a faction, you lose against it because you're not sure best where to place your shots. Before we had some high profile wins with the Guard, before people started realizing they're an S tier faction, you actually saw the Guard player numbers very steady, like the mid-20s, just steady, steady, steady. And you saw that Guard win rate going up. Who remembers was it about 2 months ago? Maybe not quite that long, but roughly 2 months ago, Guard had 51% win rate. And that was because there wasn't much new blood coming into the faction. You had some very experienced players that had basically been hammering the Guard since the beginning of 10th edition, and any new players that had come in had finally, got a few games under the belt, and the win rate was going up and up and up and up and up. So yeah, Guard are actually. This looks bad, but Guard are in a good place right now. We've just got a lot of new commanders that are finding their feet, and yeah, it will take time. It'll take time to train up the new recruits, to train up the new people in our community. But this goes to everyone out there right now, and whether it's new player or player, goes to everyone in the Guard community right now. We welcome these people with open arms, even if these people might just be fair weather players. Even these people might just be jumping on to play Guard for 6 months because they're chasing the meta. That's fine. It doesn't matter. Everyone, you do your 6 months. You do your tour duty. That's fine by me. At the end of the day, more people come into our community is a good thing. More people, more knowledge, more experience. Just bigger, healthier communities. That's the way to do it. All right. Now, moving on. We've got the Dark Angels, or as they should be called, Green Marines. Because it's just Ironstorm, man. Now, it's interesting. It says there's 14 players here, and yet we've got only 10 players here. So I feel like there might be a detachment missing. Or maybe this is meant to be higher than 5. I'm not sure. But as is tradition, every fucking week, Dark Angel, the most popular Dark Angel attachment is the Ironstorm Spearhead. But now, the interesting thing is we have seen one dude did take Company of Hunters and went 2 and 5. Well done to him for actually trying something different. Gladiator Task Force didn't do so well this week with only a 30% win rate. Inner Circle Task Force did surprisingly better. 50% win rate, although it's very, 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 very hard to judge. There was only 2 players. I do feel bad for Dark Angels players because everyone was basically, when everyone's on indexes and Dark Angels could choose between their Specialist Detachment or the Gladiator Task Force, most people were taking the Gladiator Task Force. It was kind of like arguments both ways, but most people were taking the Gladiator Task Force anyway. And when the Codex came out, everyone, when the Space Codex came out, everyone went over to the Ironstorm Spearhead, but they still weren't using the Dark Angel stuff. And then Dark Angels Codex comes out and it's same stuff. There is one comment I do want to pass here. And it's not a particularly analytical one, but I think it is an important one to say. There are going to be a lot of Dark Angels players right now who just want to run Deathwing. They want to run all of them bone white fucking Terminators. And they don't give a fuck whether they're good or bad. They just want them to be usable. They just want to be able to go to a tournament and reliably go 2 and 3 on a badish day, 3 and 2 on a goodish day. That's all they want to do, and they just can't. So tragically bad that they can't do it. But not a single to be honest, slight tangent. I've not seen any bike spam in 10th edition from any faction. I do fully sympathise with Dark Angels players, and whilst it is good that they at least have a viable build, I understand that it's not very interesting. And the thing that I love about the Guard right now more than anything is the variety of playstyles I can bring to the table. Guard right now, I think it's something that hasn't really been mentioned, and it's something that doesn't really get drawn into with these stats. Guard right now are a phenomenally interesting faction, because if you want to run pretty much any of the crazy classic traditional playstyles like your infantry guard, mechanized guard, fucking artillery guard, if someone comes up to you and goes, oh man, I'd love to run, I've had people come up to me and go, oh, I'd love to run guard, but if I was to do it, I want to go like all Krieg and go like artillery and infantry, but I bet that wouldn't be any good. And I'm like, no. It pains me to know that there are quite a lot of factions out there which I've got 1 or 2 viable builds, but they don't feel like their faction. Chaos Knights, or should I say Chaos Codex Brigand. You're just seeing lots and lots of baby knights. Occasionally you see someone take a big 1 or 2, but by and large, the foundation of the Codex is the Baby Knights. Looking at the numbers, we've got 16 players, which is a pretty healthy number for a faction like Chaos Knights. 30 wins out of 73 games played, 41% win rate, 41% win rate, with one player going the distance, but not winning a tournament. Baby Knights they're just a stat check. Did you bring enough anti-tank? If you did, then you're fine. If you didn't, you're in trouble. The difference a lot of time between Chaos Knights and like Imperial Knights is that not always, but often, even if you didn't bring enough anti-tank, because their damage output doesn't seem as good, because most of the time they're like hitting on 3s versus the Chaos Knights, which seem to be most of the time hitting on 2s. What you find is you can kind of play around and chip away a few here and there, but play, the objective game. But yeah, Chaos Knights, no changes really this week. I tell you what though, actually one extra bit of analysis, and this is in my local meta, all knights have hugely dropped off in popularity. The only time I see any kind of knight these days is as an ally. They obviously exist, but I personally have not seen, out of all the tournaments I've been to in 2024, I've not seen a pure knight army. Not in action. I wonder if the meta is starting to shift away from them. There are always going to be those players that actually like knights and are knight players, and fair play to them. And they're a relatively easy faction to get into. It's anecdotal, but I do play in a lot of tournaments, and I do play regularly in 2 completely different areas. So maybe there's something to it. I'll keep you posted. But I didn't even see pure knights, someone else running them, when I went to Adepticon. There probably was someone there doing it, but I didn't see it in either the teams or in the and I didn't encounter it. So yeah, I think it's same shit, different day, but I do feel like the faction is beginning to decline a little bit in representation at tournaments, for sure. The Custodes. Good player numbers this week. Or now. Good player numbers. 72 wins out of 173 games played, giving them a 42% win rate, with 3 people going the distance. So Custodes, I would say, are in a really similar spot to Guard. We've got similar player numbers, similar win rates, similar games won, similar games played, and similar number of players going 4-on-1, showing that the faction can go a long way. So I do suspect that the Custodes might have been suffering. Some factions don't do quite as well on quieter weeks, when all the competitive players are off to, like, let me be clear, all the hyper competitive, like best in faction players are off doing other things, which they were doing. There's a lot of team tournaments going on this week. But I also suspect that Custodes is suffering a little bit from the Guard effect, where a lot of people have heard Custodes are really, really good again, and they're pulling out their Custodes armies and going to tournaments with them, not realizing that Custodes aren't good again. There's been 2 things that have kept the Custodes win rate afloat. Firstly, the fact that they literally cuckold World Eaters players, and World Eaters are a relatively popular faction, so World Eaters are just a free win for Custodes. Likewise, same with Orcs, are basically a free win for Custodes. So when you've got 2 quite popular factions, which you're always going to get at least 1 game into pretty much every tournament that you're going to win, sometimes you'll face both and you get 2 wins. That's good. So they've got some just auto win matchups essentially. And then the other thing about Custodes that's been propping the win rate is they basically have 2 builds that should both be labelled as "We wish it was 9th edition," where you take fixed objectives, you sit in the middle of the board, you do your fixed objectives, and it's frankly uninteractive and boring as fuck to play against. Like, very, very powerful tactic, and hey, we're playing competitively, so a win's a win, and that is more true than anything else. Custodes are a 4-1 faction. I don't think they're going to win many tournaments, and if what you hear about the Codex is true, and I haven't looked into it deeply, I know a lot of people are very about it. But if the codex is true, it's not going to fix anything soon. But I think even when the codex comes out, custodians will just have like 1 or 2 very, very viable builds. All they need is one good build, and then you will see you'll see that build just get spammed and spammed and spammed and spammed and spammed. Now, after custodians, we have Death Guard. Death Guard are in a really nice spot right now. A lot of different viable builds. My take on Death Guard right now is that they're just in a really nice place. What I really like about Death Guard, they have a variety of ways to play. You can put Mortarion in there, or you don't put Mortarion in there. You can put Plagueburst Crawlers in there, or you don't put Plagueburst Crawlers in there. You can have Mephetic Blight Haulers, you can have Plague Marines, you can have Death Stars. It all works. What's good about Death Guard is they have, like Imperial Guard, is they have a really just nice, solid set of data sheets. They've got various different characters which can buff different things. Like sometimes they can put, sometimes like, ooh, I'll go for the Tallyman. Ooh, with his little abacus. Ooh, you go for the Tallyman. And or sometimes you'll go for the Biologic Putrefier. But all the data sheets are solid. And as a result, every Death Guard, a lot of Death Guard armies I see do take the Mortarion Blightburst Crawler stuff. But I also see a lot of Death Guard armies that don't take it at all. So Death Guard right now are a really varied faction. And it's showing, and by the way, having variety and not having just one viable build is good for 2 reasons. Firstly, it's good because it makes your faction interesting. It means that there's always new depths to be plumbed. There's always new tactics to be tried. It means that you are attractive. Your player base, your faction is interesting, and so you get lots of you'll always have a steady stream of new players and new talent coming in, and people finding your army interesting, which is great. And there's always, and no matter if something's bad, you've always got something you pivot to, so you just maintain a solid sort of 40-50% win rate. Right? Secondly, having variety is important, as it means that it keeps people off balance. When orcs first started jumping in trucks and going, "Witness me!" and running at people at the beginning of 10th edition, completely fucked people over, including Eldar. Now everyone sees it and goes, "Psst, change the fucking record, Greenie." Having variety means that people can't predict what you're going to do, which means that if they don't, especially talking about regular guard for an experience, as an example here, they're an experience-led faction. So if you play against something you've not got experience against, that's tricky. Like you play a Death Guard army 1 week and play a different Death Guard army the next week, and you might lose into both because even though you've played Death Guard the first time and now you should know what you're doing, they're 2 very, very different lists. And also, look at this, 26 players and 5 people going the distance. I would describe Death Guard they're in the Goldilocks zone right now. With a bit of practice, you can go 4-1 every time. And going 4-1 is mwah. Going 4-1 is actually that's the gentleman's score. Well played to those guys, absolutely smashed it. Next we're up to Space Marines. So Space Marines, 28 players. So 28 players. 64 games, 64 wins out of 140 games. 5 people going 4-1, but no one winning a tournament. Interesting. 46% win rate. That seems very reasonable and balanced, doesn't it? Wrong. Fucking wrong. Look at that filthy number. Every single one of those players that went 4-1 ran Ironstorm Spearhead. So almost half the players went Ironstorm, and they basically won everything. One guy didn't get the memo about the Anvil Siege Force. It is now established headcanon. It's not a headcanon. It's now established canon, full-blown competitive canon that there's just one guy running Stormlands for Space Marines, and he is now known as Stormlands Guy. 100%. Whoever you are, you brave, beautiful bastard. Even if it's a figment of our imagination, it's multiple people making the same mistake each time. Wherever you are, man, you're a brave, beautiful motherfucker. So every week we see a number of people go Vanguard and pull out a pretty healthy win. And we get the same with Firestorm Assault Force. And we get good player numbers. Yeah, this is basically, it's very consistent at this point. Firestorm Assault Force has come a long way. A long ass way. For a while, it was binned off and said it was a bit shit, and it's just slowly but surely climbed its way up to being half decent. And then we've also got Vanguard was really popular, dropped off, and it's having a bit of a resurgence. But looking at the title, the top three, the actual good ones: Marines with the 55% win rate, Marines with the 52% win rate, Marines with the 48% win rate. This 46 is very disingenuous because it's being massively brought down by these 5 players. The reality with Marines is, for a while now, they have been kicking ass above 50% win rate. And a lot of people just skim the headlines on Marines and go 46% noob faction being brought down by all the people smashing 2 halves of Leviathan box together. Frankly, I think we're beyond that now. Overall, Marines are looking very healthy with a variety of playstyles, good player numbers, consistently coming home with good wins, with Ironstorm being the clear leader. But if you don't want to be a fucking shill, you can go and play Vanguard and Firestorm and actually grow a pair of bollocks. These are Marine builds with some chest hair, is what I'm going to say. World Eaters doing okay. 22 players. Pretty healthy numbers. They've not all been culled by the Custodian's death squads, and which World Eaters are probably rubbing their hands with glee looking at that World Eater, looking at that Custodian's Codex. 22 players looks pretty healthy. 46% win rate looks pretty healthy. 2 players being able to go 4-1, but no one winning a tournament. Have we got anyone who's won a tournament out of these factions? No one's won a tournament out of these factions so far. There's not much to report about World Eaters at the moment. They are still taking Angron in every single list. World Eaters have not innovated much, but that's no surprise because they don't have much to innovate with. They've got about a quarter of a codex, and I'm still one of these grognardy bastards that thinks that a lot of these factions should have just expanded the Chaos Space Marine Codex rather than getting their own separate thing. Space Wolves, again, not an army that is requiring a huge amount of additional analysis. They have one viable build. Space Wolves have got 9 players, quite low player numbers, but yeah, Space Wolves 9 players, a little bit low. Maybe a bit of faction fatigue coming in here. We have got 20 wins out of 43 games, 2 players that actually went the distance with a 47% win rate, and 1 brave, beautiful bastard who actually went 5-1 with Space Wolves in a Gladius. The vast majority of Space Wolf players are still leading into the Stormlands Task Force, but every week we are seeing that the efficacy of that attachment going down, because it's like an Orc pressure build. It'll get you the first time or 2, but then you'll start adapting, and if it's the only tactic that you're doing, it could be an issue. And I've been saying this for a while now. Stormlands went up, and now it started going a little bit down. Ironstorm, showing that it's not as good with Space Wolves, but it's Ironstorm at the end of the day. Vanguard, this was a bad call, Ripley. Bad call. Los Angeles Classic GT24 Pasadena, 49 players, 5 rounds. Well done to that Space Wolf player. You went to a proper GT. I don't know what he did to do it, but clearly he did something. But well done to him. I would love to know what was in that list. And if it turns out, I don't think it is, but if it turned out that it was a mechanized Space Wolf list, I think that my cock might actually explode. But if it was some sort of more mechanized Space Wolf army, I'd be like, oh! That'd be me right there. This week, nobody made the mistake of bringing real Space Raiders. To say that Sky Splinter Assault saved Dark Elder would be an understatement. Before this attachment, it's been out for a while now. And we do, we also accepted the new reality quite quickly. Yes, Sky Splinter very good, blah, blah, blah. But let's just take a moment to go back and just consider where Dark Eldar were for a huge part at the beginning of 10th edition, pretty much all 10th edition. And we saw Dark Eldar player numbers contract to single digits. We saw win rates of like 20%, just insane. And there was no one. No one was doing better than 2 and 3, 3 and 2. Just awful. And the one viable build they had was just how many Dark Lancers can you spam. Since Sky Splinter Assault has come out, we have seen such a resurgence, such a healing of the faction. And it's very, very good. And it goes to show that Games Workshop clearly does have some people, whether it's New Balance testers or people in the company, it goes to show that there are people in this company which know what the fuck they're doing. Hopefully, those people, after GW saw the success of Guys But Assault, will be given a bit more leeway to flex the muscles, because they seem to be doing good. Tau, 20 players, decent numbers, but not that high. They can go higher than that if they want to. Tau are a popular faction. 47 wins out of 97 games, 3 people going 4-1 but not winning a tournament, 48%. Tau are very cheap. Tau, blah, 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 blah. Right, okay, fine. The codex is out, right? Like, if I go on Games Workshop's website, I can buy a Tau codex. The fact that they still aren't being allowed to use that codex at tournaments, at this point, and I rarely say this, you can buy the Tau codex. Everyone has a Tau codex, right? I mean, it's not going to change. It's not going to change. Are the points in the codex? When we went through it with Hades Stands, it was bullshit then, and it's bullshit now. Okay, you've just spent £125 on a new box of models, and a month later, you can't use those models. You can't use that book. It's bullshit. Okay, it's not okay. Look at that codex. Look at that codex objectively and tell me that if you let it through into your event without an FAQ, that it's going to completely break everything. No, this is not Eldar we're talking about here. There needs to be a semblance of fucking nuance from the community with this. There needs to be a case-by-case basis, because this is just stupid. This whole idea of we can't use something until the FAQ has come out. I agree with that, but it should not be a blanket statement. When you have a codex in hand, which is clearly not going to fuck everyone over, they should be allowed to use it. And the big thing about this, right, is how I was saying this like a month ago. When was the crew box out? This stat is meaningless. It means nothing. It is dead data. It is dead games. It means nothing. It is just week after week after week of just porridge made with salt and water. It's unpalatable. It is something I don't want to engage with. I want to see the new shit, because this is basically it doesn't mean anything, because it's not good. It's not actually real tile data, and yet I'm forced to fucking consume it like some prisoner. Orcs. It's interesting to see that we're getting a bit of a last gasp from the Orc index. Look at this, up to 49%. So going through the data specifically, we've got 17 players, 41 wins out of 83 games. One person went 4-1. Well done to them. But no one went all the way. And they went 49%. They got a 49% win rate. It's amazing that the Orcs and World Eaters were above Custodies this weekend. I wonder if there is a preemptive jumping of ship. If the rats are fleeing the sinking vessel. And we're already seeing Custodies numbers plummet through the fucking ground as people very, very quickly switch over onto something else. Leagues of Votann. Not a huge amount. If they get Leagues of Votann, 10 players, relatively low number of players then, but they're still overall actually a relatively low number of players. 24 games won out of 48, 2 people going 4-1, but no one winning a tournament, so no one going 5-0, 50% win rate. Leagues of Votann have settled into a very, very comfortable pattern. Every single one of their armies contains a couple of the big Terminator blocks. Every single one of their armies contains 2 to 4 Sagittars. Then you get a little bit of variety. I saw one guy run a Hecaton Land Fortress, which was cool this week. And I also, sometimes you get people take the Berserkers. And sometimes you see people take the Exosuit Armor guys. But once those Sagittars are in, with the Hearthkin inside, that's the majority of the Votann sort of stuff. And then they season after that. The problem with Votann is they're a very, very shallow faction. Really isn't a lot going for. It's not their fault that they only run that shit, because it's all they've got going. I wonder if GW may have shied away from the faction based on the reaction that they got. I wonder if Votann were a bit of a quick cash grab. They really, really need... Like, I remember when G-Stealer Cult came out. G-Stealer Cult had their first wave, and it was really good, and I bought that. And then like a year later, they got their second wave, and that was also pretty good. And I feel like Votann have had the first wave, and then we've had nothing for them since then. That would concern me. They're a reasonably popular faction, but if GW for some reason has moved away from them, we may end up finding them being in limbo a bit. Maybe GW will go with my master plan of them combining Votann and Tau. Who knows? Who knows? I think that would work, but anyway. Deathwatch. Nothing here. There's only 2 players. Now, those 2 players did phenomenally well. Going 5 wins out of 10 games. Going 50%. Neither one of them went 4-0 though. So one dude went 3-2 and one dude went 2-3. It has to be like that. But well done, guys. You're representing. And these 2 Deathwatch guys, it's kind of like Stormlands guys. These 2 Deathwatch guys turn up every fucking week. I think we keep an eye on them for a few more weeks. If we see any other exciting developments come out, great. Otherwise, I think we basically just breeze past these guys going forward, because it doesn't seem like there's any real movement in the faction. Blood Angels, the Sons of Sanguinius. 12 players, and pretty much every single one of them was running Sons of Sanguinius Detachment. 10 players, 27 victories out of 50 games. 2 people going very well. 1 going 4-1. The other going 5-0 and getting the big win. 54% win rate. So yeah, Blood Angels basically got a big update to their faction, and not a big update, a very simple update to their faction, and it made a wild amount of difference. Really, really, really big deal. And we're seeing this now. Blood Angels are back. They're back in a big way. If you face off against them, be prepared for close combat. Fix yo bayonets. I've heard Death Company are doing quite well. There could be bollocks, but if you're going to play against Blood Angels, I think every competitive Blood Angel army is taking at least 1 unit of Death Company. That could be bullshit, though. Okay. Necrons. Oh my god, we got Necrons. Wow. Biggest faction in terms of player numbers. Biggest faction in terms of raw number of games. Fucking won. So you got 48 players, 118 victories, and 235 games played, with a whopping, a staggering, a mind-boggling 12 players going the distance and going X and 1 or higher. Now, out of also they won the most tournaments of the weekend. Everyone else who won an event won 1 event. Next, so Canoptic Court. Let's go through the obvious stuff first. Canoptic Court and Hive Crypt Legion continue to be the most popular ways of running Necrons. Hive Crypt Legion continues to be the most popular way of running Necrons, with Canoptic Court having a distinct second place in terms of player numbers. This week feels like it might have been the first week, and I might be forgetting this, but it feels like Canoptic Court has seen a bit of a resurgence. Everyone and their nan, everyone and their fucking mum was going over to Hive Crypt at the beginning. Oh, I could teleport 3 inches away. Blah, 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 blah. And that was very powerful. We've seen significant numbers of players. Canoptic Court might be seeing favour But regardless, it's Canoptic Court and Havoc Legion are now firmly entrenched as the competitive choices for Necrons. One gives you much boom boom. Other gives you much zoom zoom. I swear to God, this is not the first time we've seen Awakened Dynasty crop up. I swear to God, I think it's the first time we've seen it do any good. But with a sample size of only 2 players, it's difficult to say. But, 2 players, 1 person. So 1 person went 4-1. Very hard to discern that. Either Awakened Legion is fucking incredible, or it is shite. We don't know. And then but one thing we do know is that Annihilation Legion is just shite. So, no, Annihilation Legion is a non-starter. I don't know why it keeps cropping up. Awakened Dynasty is a wacky waving inflatable arm flailing tube man of a dynasty. Hypercrypt seems to be losing a bit of momentum. Canoptic Court seems to be surging. Let us now get into the top 8. Grey Knights, 29 players, 70 victories out of 139 games, with 6 people going all the way, 50% win rate, technically slightly higher than 50% win rate. 1 person actually winning a tournament, with the size of that tournament being medium. It's 48 player Spanish tournament. Very, 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 very good. Now, have generally seen an upward trend, and they've generally seen an upward trend since their Dread Knights got unfisted. So that's good. It's good. Grey Knights now actually feel like a real army and not just a bunch of infantry jumping around being a bit weird. Finger banging each other in the corner. So Grey Knights are doing well. However, there is an extra factor to this. Grey Knights always do well on Quiet Week. They are tricksy, and when they are allowed to be tricksy and they play against people that maybe aren't quite as experienced and how to deal with them, they always have a bit of a surge. So this is a Quiet Week. Grey Knights have a surge. Nature is very much normal and balanced. Genestealer Cult, bit of a... I mean, they're doing better than Deathwatch and AdMech, but frankly, the third bad faction of 40k, and not bad in terms of win rate, because 51% win rate is very, very respectable. 2 of their players going 4-1, very, very respectable. No one won an event. There's a lot to be proud of with that faction. The problem is just the player numbers. Player numbers are really bad. Genestealer Cult is just unfun to play. If you're good at rolling 4-ups or you've got access to the poo dice, then you'll be fine. If you're not good at rolling 4-ups, you're going to be fucking miserable. And I played 1 game with my Genestealer Cult before their update, and they were really, really fun. And I played 1 game with Genestealer Cult after their nerf, and it was so frustrating because I didn't get any units back. It was so frustrating that I've not had the desire nor inclination to pick them up again. Chaos Demons, they've only gone and done it. Praise be to the Dark Gods. Praise be to the Dark Gods. They've only gone and bloody done it. They've actually won an event, and they didn't win it by going 4 wins and a draw. They actually won it. So Chaos Demons have been chasing this high forever. They've got 16 players, same as always. It's sort of relative numbers. 42 wins out of 80 games played for a 53% win rate. 1 person going 4-1, 1 person going 5-0, and Chaos Demons won the 47 player event in the UK. And the guy that went 4-1 came second. So look at that. Double doozy on the Chaos Demons. This is clearly very, very heretical. These 2 guard players will need to report to the commissars for not beating them. It was bound to happen. Chaos Demons, a lot of people think they're not very good right now. They're fine. They've got a totally viable build. Someone somewhere was going to have the run with the Monster Mash, with the Chaos Demons, where it went the distance. Now, that's me presuming it was Monster Mash. I presume that because it's the only build that they ever take. 2 ground clean ones. 1 Fate Weaver, 1 Be'lakor, 1 Bloodthirster, 1 Galaxy. That's 6 demons. Typically, you'll see 5 out of those 6, essentially. But yeah, it was bound to happen. It was bound to happen when everyone is throwing and slinging fucking poo at the wall. And they finally made it happen. So well done, Chaos Demon players. 8 months of running exactly the same build, and you finally got a full-blown, legitimate tournament win. That shows dedication and a little bit of insanity. Imperial Knights, 1 week they're in the shitter. The next week, they're doing really well. Why does this keep happening? Someone won an event with them? Holy fuck. Who won an event with Imperial Knights? Someone won an event with Imperial Knights, and they played Iron, and there's Iron Storm. There's 3 Iron Storms here? What? Apparently I don't know anything. Apparently, I'm a fucking idiot who doesn't know anything. Because if you told me that there was an Imperial Knight player who managed to beat everyone at that tournament with there being 3 Iron Storm Space Marine players at that tournament, I would have said, you crazy. I would have said, no fucking way. Not a snowball chance in hell. Not a sausage. But somehow he's done it. Absolute mad lad. It's never been done until now. I'm staggered. I do not know. Maybe he just got lucky. Maybe he rolls 5 of invulnerable saves like a fiend. Or maybe I am wrong about Knights. But you'd think with that much anti-tank in that meta, that those Knights would be in a really, really bad spot. The terrain might make a difference. Could be player place terrain. Could have gone first a lot. I always find Imperial Knights do better at smaller events. That was a medium-sized one. But I always found, so this is a separate observation. I always find Imperial Knights do better at smaller events, and they always do better on quieter weekends. A bit like Grey Knights, when people turning up and they're not quite as ready to deal with 1 big knight or 2 baby knights. Firstly, Black Templars. I've been saying it for a while now. I will continue to say it. Black Templars are the best Marine chapter right now. I know a lot of people disagree. I know a lot of people will make arguments for Dark Angels and Ironstorm. I know a lot of people will make arguments for Blood Angels. I know there have been weeks when both of those Marine chapters have been above Black Templars. But here's the kicker. It's not about the 1 week here and there. Black Templars have consistently been one of the best performing chapters since the beginning in 10th edition. They have had multiple viable builds. They have had entire legions of Primaris Marines run across the board. They saw a resurgence in their firstborn Crusaders. And we've seen them run Dreadnoughts. I've seen them run elite stuff, Emperor Champion, all sorts of crazy shit. So Black Templars are good because right now they have a variety of builds. A very, very equal spread across the number of players. 5 for Ironstorm Spearhead, 5 for Gladius, 8 for Righteous Crusaders. That is a little bit higher, but it's not. It's an average of like 6 per one of these attachments. But it's 5 on Ironstorm. Now, Ironstorm is just generally very good. It gets better with Black Templars because they get multi-melters on their tanks. Main guns do what they need to. You've still got your Ironstorm reroll for your multi-melter and stuff. Free multi-melter. Gladius Task Force is just very, very flexible. Gladius Task Force we see consistently do well with Black Templars, and that's because it allows them to kind of take whatever the fuck they want and then slap it in a Gladius Task Force. Also, I think is the Assault Doctrine Advance and Charge. It might not be Advance and Charge anymore, but it's definitely we're seeing the flexibility of the Gladius has definitely been on display. Righteous Crusade is actually consistently the most popular detachment, and yet is also consistently the worst performing. It's not badly performing, 50% is very, very good, but it's consistently the worst performing detachment. So if it's the worst for detachment, why do people keep taking it? Because that's the Black Templar one. So these guys, I would say, are your more competitive Black Templar players, and these guys are your old grognardy or very, very sort of more, I don't know, not very, very. They're your Black Templar players. The other ones are your competitive players, they're your Black Templar players. And they're always these are the guys that still get their 4th edition Black Templar Codex out and read it every night and all this kind of stuff. Like, they're cool, don't get me wrong, these are my people. This is how I play my Black Templars. And so these are the ones that are just taking Black Tide. These are the ones that will take Righteous Crusaders until the day they die, or until the new edition comes out, or whatever. They're always going to take the Black Templar theme one. That's just what they're like. Accept any challenge, no matter the odds. That's what they're like. Getting into the podium and the top 3. Boo! Eldar have been nerfed. We're not using them anymore. Move on. Apparently not. So Eldar, I can't believe I'm saying this, probably need another round of nerfs. It really makes you flabbergast me when I think about how overpowered that book is. That Eldar index must have received more nerfs than any other army ever. I'm not talking like getting squatted or anything like that. I mean, over the course of the Great Reset, with all of these FAQs that we've had since 8th and 9th and 10th edition, Eldar have to be the one that have been the most FAQ'd and the most nerfed. And yet they're still placing the top 3. Yes, it's a quiet week. Yes, a lot of the really competitive players will be at the big team events. Doesn't matter. They still somehow got on the fucking podium. They won in Australia. Of course it's fucking Australia. Get your Eldar problem in line, man. The rest of us have sorted them out. Now, Eldar had 30 players, which is really, really high player numbers for a quiet week, which goes to show the faction is not dead. Clearly, I would not be surprised if Eldar keep this up, that we see flocks of people going back to them. We saw a big dip when people moved away, but the player numbers are going up again. And the win rate too. Look at this. 9 people going 4-1. It's sickening. Apparently, now I haven't faced Eldar since the last fucking, but apparently it's all about them Aspect Warriors now. So, Aspect Warriors and Phoenix Lords. That's what the flavour is. I need to face Eldar again. I went through a phase of facing them a lot. Beginning of 10th, wouldn't you know? That's funny, isn't it? Funny coincidence. But yeah, I need to confirm. My sources and my readings tell me that it's Aspect Warriors are back on the menu. I want to face into it so I can confirm what they're actually using. Next, we have Thousand Suns. Now, I recently had the privilege of facing off against Thousand Suns. I hate them. Oh, man, they're really powerful. They have a lot of flamers, which they can still use on Overwatch and stuff. Magnus is also, frankly, a damage output machine. They also can do double Doom Bolt, so they can put out... So even though they've got loads of flamers, they can put out loads of mortal wounds, which allows them to get past. Thousand Suns are... It's the Cabal points, man. That they can double move. They can teleport. They can Doom Bolt. The Cabal points are really, really strong. And they're really hard to get rid of. Like... They're embedded in these fucking Rubric Marine squads. Oh, nightmare. Aramon's great, by the way. Aramon's an absolute beast. And Magnus is an absolute beast. When facing 1,000 Suns, do not expect that you will be able to trap them in combat. You won't be able to trap them in combat because they can Doom Bolt their way out of combat. Which is what I learned the hard way with my fucking Tyranids. So, yeah, 1,000 Suns... They do combat. So the list I faced, to give you an idea, this is a very powerful list that ended up coming second at the tournament that I was at. The list I faced had a Demon Prince, a Muselith Vortex Beast, and Magnus and Aramon. And then there were 2 big units of Rubric Marines, 2 small units of Rubric Marines. So that's the Zangles on disc. That's what I faced. So yeah, they've got all sorts. So they can also do tricks where like they can double move a unit and then use Cabal points to let Magnus shoot through them. So Magnus can hide out a line of sight. They can move a shitty priest, shitty sorceress really far, and then basically Magnus does all of his spells from that sorceress and does loads and loads, and all of his attacks does loads of damage. And I was on the receiving end of that, and it's pretty fucking nasty, to say the least. Finally, we get to the top ones. Wellington. Getting up here once is an anomaly. Taking the top slot twice in as many months since we've had the updates is wildly interesting. Sisters of Battle, 15 players. Not great, not terrible, very normal player numbers for a weekend of this size. 44 wins out of 74 games played. 5 people, so that is 33% of the people, went 4-1 or better. Now 4 of them actually went 4-1, and 1 person went 5-0 and won. And what did they win? What was the size of the event? They won a 33 player GT. So I think the big takeaway here is that Sisters Battle are hugely overpowered and must be nerfed back into the ground. When you take into account the mirror match, this is actually a 100% win rate. Okay, slight exaggeration. Oh. Sisters, the last time Sisters surged as well, it was quite weak. So what Sisters of Battle have shown is that when the cats are away, the mice will play. When we have a quieter week, when we have a lot of the best talent in this game playing at specific team tournaments, which aren't covered as part of this, then you find that Sisters start surging. They are, in fact, a GT winning faction, but they're not a super major winning faction. They're a GT winning faction. They're really, I put them they're upper mid, they're B plus A tier kind of thing. They're very, very good. They have a great play into Necron as well, which gives them a big boost. But generally speaking, no one wants to get hit by a Melter that's going to fucking always win you on a 6. Because they place a 6 in there. Yeah. So, yeah, Sisters, the big takeaway of Sisters is that they're very, 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 very shooty. Maybe. They shoot the bollocks off you, actually. But yeah, their tits shoot the bollocks off you. They're not overly combat, although you do need to be aware of a couple of units that are going to throw you, like Arco-Flagellants and basically Arco-Flagellant. A couple of things I learned from playing Sisters. The Penitent Engines look really scary. They die so easily. And Sisters, I've noticed, struggle with attritional warfare. Now, right now, we are in a meta of elites. We're in a meta of elite Necrons. We're in a meta of elite Marines. We are in a meta of elites. That may change. On the horizon, we have got the Orcs. A detachment that is getting a lot of people quite erect is the Green Tide. I think the Green Tide will probably be the fun meme attachment that can go 2 and 3, 3 and 2. But if we see more people taking between Green Tide, Unending Swarm, and Imperial Guard, we now have multiple factions which are can go very, very infantry heavy and can completely overwhelm elite armies. Sisters of Battle play very well into elites. They struggle with attrition. That's my experience. And that, my dear chickadees, is the 40k meta stats of this week. All right. And on that note, thank you for watching. And of course, as always, see you guys next time. Would you like to know more? If so, then please consider becoming a channel member or patron. By supporting the channel, not only will you be doing your part, but you'll also be helping me create more content for your viewing pleasure and unlocking a whole host of perks. You get everything from a badge next to your name, custom emojis, but the big one is access to the Mordian Glory Discord server, an online community with almost 2,500 active members. It's always popping off in the MG Discord. We've got channels for army lists, hobbying, tactics, stories, and even a pretty spicy meme section as well. For all you greenhorns that wanted to see the Mordian glory hole, today is your lucky day. And joking aside, I do want to say a massive thank you to all of the current channel members and patrons. You guys are amazing, truly the lifeblood of the channel. I could not do Mordian Glory full-time without the incredible and generous support of my members, so thank you guys so much. And last but certainly not least, I want to say a personal thank you to all of my top tier Patreons. These are the War Masters, the people who have truly gone above and beyond the call of duty. So a heartfelt thank you to Alex Dengal, Bon Vert, Mad Larkin, Marcus Roberts, Mark Panconi, RJ Scorpion, Swordfish Trombone, Try Again Bragg, John Stubbs, Nick Wolf, Diesel Fox, and August Varney. Seriously guys, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Your support is incredible and it makes a huge difference. Thank you so much. That's all for now. Hope you've all enjoyed today's video, and of course, as always, see you guys next time.